please welcome Natalie Zanita. All right. Have a good time,
Wow, what a tough act to follow with Holly. She's amazing. But I'll give it a go. So I've also got the challenging time slot before your first coffee break of the day. And Holly was mentioning coffee at the end of her presentation, so you've probably all got it on the mind now. So I hope you'll bear with me for the next half an hour or so. To introduce myself, although Laura's pretty much done that for me, I'm Natalie and I'm the Executive Director of IMG Fashion in Asia Pacific. For those of you that aren't familiar with IMG, we represent some of the world's greatest fashion icons and sporting figures in more than 30 countries. We also stage hundreds of live events across the globe, and in Australia we operate the annual events like Tough Mudder, the Colour Run, UFC, Gourmet Escape and professional bull riding. So it's really something for everyone, but my favourite of course is Australian Fashion Week. Let me just check if we've got it. There we go. Okay, so our key area of expertise at IMG in this region is, of course, fashion, which we're talking about today. So globally speaking, IMG either owns, operates or commercially represents, or we're in joint ventures with over 30 Fashion Week events around the world, including our flagship event, New York Fashion Week, The Shows, which just started yesterday. I'm sure many of you are keenly following that on social media at the moment. But that's only one part in our overall role in fashion at IMG. We also provide production services for designers and brands, strategy, content development, distribution, brand partnerships, and many, many more. All of this comes to life though right here in Australia through our fashion events and also our modelling business, IMG Models. So for my part in this massive global machine, I'm responsible for the fashion division in APAC, and our annual Fashion Week here in Australia is one of the core events that's both owned and produced by IMG globally, and it's also one of the most successful, which I'm really proud to say. So before we go any further, I want to give you a quick crash course in some of the terminology I'm going to be using this morning. We're talking fashion, we're not launching rockets, but one of the biggest challenges I faced when I joined IMG 3 years ago was learning that lingo that's so specific to the fashion industry. So fashion industry are the people that attend Fashion Week. They include designers, buyers, media and digital influencers. While Fashion Week looks like one big party, my team won't agree with that, but the outside it looks like one big party. Fashion Week is a trade event, and all of our guests are there to conduct business. Designers, they're really the stars of the event and they're the reason we do what we do. Examples of designers who participate in Australian Fashion Week include Camilla and Mark, Zimmerman, Carla Zampatti, Camilla and Sass & Bide, just to name a few. When we talk about buyers, this means retailers, so the likes of Net-a-Porter, Saks Fifth Avenue, David Jones, The Iconic, and many, many more. Media, very broad term, but for us, we work with fashion media outlets. So they range from Vogue and Harper's Bazaar to Women's Wear Daily and the Business of Fashion, all with the goal of generating coverage of our event and also for the designers showing at our event. Resort, that's probably the term you're going to hear me refer to most consistently. Resort is trans-seasonal clothing and it leads into traditional spring, summer and autumn, winter designer collections. So resort is also known as cruise for some of the luxury international fashion houses like Louis Vuitton and Chanel. But I should also note here that resort is definitely not just bikinis and Camilla caftans. Street style, paparazzi style photography of celebs and influencers and bloggers. So in recent years, street style at Fashion Week has become just as major as a runway show for providing people with fashion inspiration and also media coverage. See Now, Buy Now means collections that are available immediately for purchase after they appear on the runways at Fashion Week. So many designers have started to incorporate See Now, Buy Now into their Fashion Week shows as a way to drive immediate sales now that consumers have so much access to the event through live streaming and social media. And finally, the acronyms for our event. So MBFWA is Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week Australia, which is the trade event, and that takes place Sunday through to Thursday. And MBFWE is Mercedes-Benz Fashion Weekend Edition, which is our consumer extension event that runs directly after Fashion Week on Friday and Saturday. So now you're all hopefully fluent in fashion. Here's how all those things relate to our story. So since acquiring the event in 2006, we've built Australian Fashion Week into one of the world's most successful fashion event platforms. We're now in our 24th year, and despite the increasing challenges that are faced globally by the fashion industry, our event, I'm happy to say, is more relevant than ever. But it hasn't been an easy road to the top, and we've certainly faced our fair share of challenges, as I'm sure you all have with your events. As I walk you through where we are right now and how we've gotten there, I want to share with you some of the universal truths that can apply to all events regardless of your industry. I hope these lessons learned through our trial and error will help each of you deliver your own best event possible. So we might take a look now at where Fashion Week is today, 12 years in the making.
Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week.
I love it from start to finish. It was great to see Australian fashion so celebrated. It's absolutely amazing.
We're really excited and honoured to be opening Fashion Week on home soil.
I just saw the Albus Lumen show, which I loved. I think Rita's a really talented designer.
Today I'm expecting lots of playfulness, as always. That's what the girls do so well.
I'm calm right now. Before that, I wasn't feeling so calm.
Today we got to go to a show at Bondi Beach, so I mean, you can't get more unique than that.
First time we've done swimwear, everything was in cottons and linens and very whimsical.
Great shapes and styles, they're very timeless and iconic.
I'm going to the Romance Was Born show.
Romance just takes us into a journey into their dreamscape. I thought it was a beautiful show. There were a couple of pieces that I want to steal off the girls' backs just now.
It really was a celebration of womanhood and individuality, all about detailing, high necklines, beautiful, intricate laces and crochets.
We are on the Sydney Tower. We're seeing the Mariam Sadiq show.
I think it'll be beautiful to see what she's been conjuring up since the last collection.
We've gone with a kind of terracotta, the Australian Earth theme.
Ready to smash it out of the park.
There's a lot of emotions going on and it's a really crazy time.
Whenever there are red lights, there's something going down.
Men's fashion in Australia is heating up quite a bit.
I'm just glad that all the models had heaps of fun, because we sort of said to them, you know, if you want to dance, dance.
Akira to me epitomises what Australian fashion should be about.
You get a bit of a tingle and lots of nerves and adrenaline.
The show that I just saw is by far the most incredible show I've ever been to.
Absolutely a spiritual experience. It was phenomenal.
That gets me so excited because our 2019 event's coming up in 12 weeks' time. That's also quite terrifying, probably for my team as well. But over the last 3 years, we've delivered double to triple digit growth in designer participation, buyer and press attendance, and media coverage of the event. So with this success in the trade function of the event, our commercial success has also been boosted. All of this, as all of us in the events industry know, without sponsors we don't have events, and putting on a world-class fashion event certainly isn't cheap. Our sponsors play a huge role in supporting the Australian fashion industry by helping to make this event possible. Our title sponsor, Mercedes-Benz, they've supported the event since its very inception in 1996, and at that time the brand became the first title sponsor of a Fashion Week event anywhere in the world. The growth that we've delivered over the last 3 years in particular certainly wouldn't have been possible without our strategic sponsor, Destination New South Wales, which is, of course, the New South Wales Government's agency responsible for attracting tourism to our beautiful city here in Sydney. I think we also have some friends from DNSW in the room today. Here in Australia though, fashion's a powerhouse industry and it drives annual retail sales of over $9 billion and also employs some 77,000 people in New South Wales alone. So since our establishment in 1996, Australian Fashion Week has created valuable business opportunities and export opportunities for the local fashion industry here, as well as drawing those buyers, press and influencers from across the globe. So Australia, we're certainly known for many things around the world, like our beaches and our food and our coffee and our killer wildlife, Sydney Opera House, but our designers here in Australia haven't always received that global recognition that they deserve. One of the biggest challenges facing our designers historically was that they used to have to go overseas if they wanted to raise their profiles in the lucrative European and US markets. It also didn't help that our fashion calendar clashed with the Northern Hemispheres, making that trip all the way down to Sydney to attend Australian Fashion Week a really difficult prospect for foreign buyers and stylists and press. Plus, our seasons are always totally out of sync with the North's, where while we're all here wearing Camilla caftans and Zimmermann bikinis, our counterparts north of the equator are wearing trench coats and ski gear. So this brings me to the first of our universally applicable lessons. Lesson number 1 is finding the white space. So in 2016, after close consultation with key stakeholders across the fashion industry, IMG made a crucial change in the timing of Australian Fashion Week to help our designers overcome these challenges. The event was moved back on the International Fashion Week calendar from April to May, and showed resort collections instead of the spring-summer collections we'd traditionally shown. So these changes were significant from a trade perspective. It meant that international buyers had more budget to spend on new brands because when the event was in April, the spring-summer season budget had largely already been allocated to historic accounts. Buyer focus had also at this stage been increasingly weighted towards resort collections, which are now comprising 60 to 70% of their buying budgets for the year. So while it was only moved back by a month, the shift to resort was monumental and it was welcomed by the industry. So following that first year of resort collections in 2016, the number of buyers attending Australian Fashion Week jumped by more than 50%, and finding the white space and seizing it was the single most important move towards Australian Fashion Week becoming the biggest fashion industry event in the APAC region. So at this point I want to share with you some of the cultural shifts that have shaped the event and how we've responded to the changes in the fashion industry to evolve our event and ensure its continued relevance and commercial success. So our story starts in 1996 when Simon Locke founded Australian Fashion Week. In these early days, the event was held at the Royal Hall of Industries and Fox Studios here in Sydney. Some of the designers that took part in that inaugural event still continue to show at Australian Fashion Week to this day. Most notably, Akira Isagawa. He's currently featured in a major exhibition at the Powerhouse Museum. And some of the iconic runway moments in these early years include Alex Perry's dress that was made from 58 metres of silk satin, Morrissey's Australian Aboriginal flag dress, Subi launching their denim label with rats running around loose on the runway, and supermodel Christy Hins accessorising her diamond bikini with a python. So as I mentioned earlier, in 1996, Mercedes-Benz became the world's first title sponsor of a Fashion Week event and signing on to support Australian Fashion Week. The sponsorship continues today, and their support has made an indelible impact on the Australian fashion industry, both domestically and abroad. In 2003, the event moved to a new home at the Overseas Passenger Terminal at Circular Quay, and it continued to be held there for 10 years. While this venue certainly showcased Sydney's stunning harbour and iconic landmarks, it looks straight out at the Opera House. It wasn't without its challenges for us as an event operator though. So back in these days, our event build included converting a car park and a garbage area into a runway and bringing in additional toilet facilities. So fortunately, we've improved the setup quite a bit since then. From a social perspective, the introduction of the iPhone around 2007 revolutionised the way people were communicating, but it also provided a gateway for consumers to get a peek into the world of Fashion Week. Around 2010, social media introduced a new industry of content creators. So bloggers and influencers and the new style stars became VIP guests at Fashion Week and known for their street style. In 2012, IMG launched the live stream, and this enabled fashion fans not only locally but globally to watch all of the shows in real time and allowed designers to showcase their collections to a truly global audience. And this brings me to the second of our applicable lessons from our experience. Lesson number 2 is elevating the experience is essential for growth. So by 2013, the event had well and truly outgrown its harbourside location at OPT, and we moved from Carriageworks to Everleigh. This new venue completely changed the perception of our event. It helped us eliminate countless issues and challenges that we faced with this less equipped venue at OPT. And in turn, we saw more investment from designers and sponsors and global media and buyers alike. The expense of making the change really did pay off in dividends, and we're happy to be celebrating our 7th anniversary at Carriageworks this year. So in 2014, we launched Mercedes-Benz Fashion Weekend Edition, MBFWE. The live stream was no longer enough for consumers. This new generation of fashion fans are demanding a deeper connection with more authentic experiences with the designers that they love. So with this, Australian Fashion Week became the global leader in enabling consumers to experience the world of Fashion Week. Australia is still the only place where in the world where fashion fans get to preview designer collections just mere days after the industry and up to 6 months prior to their even available in store. So that brings us to 2016, when Fashion Week here in Australia became the world's first resort fashion event. We also adjusted the date, as I said, from April to May, attracting those increased numbers of international press and media and designers. So the runway shows by this stage are no longer a straightforward means for designers to present their collection, but also an opportunity to showcase their brand to consumers via social media and digital content storytelling. By 2017, the runway show is now a consumer entertainment experience rather than just a trade platform. So we introduced the first standalone designer show at Weekend Edition, a See Now Buy Now show featuring Alice McCall. In addition to giving consumers a preview of her resort collection, Alice also integrated her current collection into the show and added a live DJ on the runway and a vocal performance. Tickets to the event show sold out, to that specific show I should say, sold out, and the designer had her best day in online sales ever the next day after the show. So based on that success, the next year we engaged the Caftan Queen, Camilla, to present the Weekend Edition opening night show. Camilla presented also a See Now Buy Now show with looks from her India collection and included some unreleased pieces that wouldn't be available in stores for another 6 weeks. So the experience was also elevated by some Bollywood-style dancers on stage and bindi artists for the front row guests for a really unique fashion experience. We also worked with the Camilla team to promote tickets to the show via their own database of fashion fans as well as our own, and the show sold out in just over a week. This was also the year that we introduced the Suites. So the Suites is a trade showroom precinct at Carriageworks, and it offers designers a private, customisable space for them to host the influential buyers and media that attend Fashion Week. Designers could now conduct their business meetings on site at the event to better leverage the access to the world's top buyers and media. For buyers, the Suites enabled them to conduct more business meetings and place orders directly with the designers by having them all in one place and no travel time across Sydney between all of the appointments. And for IMG, the Suites allowed us to deliver a more inclusive offering to the fashion industry. We now had an option for accessories designers like jewellery and sunglasses and eyewear and footwear whose collections wouldn't normally work for a runway show. So in the first year of the Suites, the 19 designers that participated conducted 720 appointments across the 4 days, and each secured 5 to 10 new buying outlets, which represented an investment of over $770,000. The following year, our designer participation in the Suites doubled, and we had to rework the whole Carriageworks floor plan to increase the space and meet the demand for the Suites. So it was definitely a good problem to have. So by 2018, consumers were now significant participants in Fashion Week. Our weekend edition audience were increasingly demanding a deeper level of engagement with our event, and these consumers want to engage not only through content but also through direct access to talent and exclusive experiences and limited edition goods. So last year we transformed the Suites into the stores, a space where designers could actually retail their collections direct to the weekend edition attendees. We also worked with Mercedes-Benz to introduce the launch party at Weekend Edition. We secured client liaisons, some Sydney DJs to headline the party. They were showing their debut fashion collection at Fashion Week during the trade event, and we saw this as such a good opportunity to give consumers that authentic Fashion Week experience. So the tickets to the party sold out, but what we weren't expecting was the demand from the fashion industry themselves to attend the event. So the industry interest in attending that consumer event really was our proof that we had a winning formula for an authentic Fashion Week experience. Now, when people say it takes a village, I think that expression is certainly true of Fashion Week. It probably is more like an army. So my full-time team of 6 in the Sydney office doubles in the 3 months leading up to the event in May across sponsorship, marketing and production. So that leads me to our third lesson, which we've learned very much through trial and error, which is scaling your teams to mirror the expertise you need. So we don't just rely on full-time staff or keeping things in-house. In addition to our global comms team in New York, we enlist the support of an external agency to manage all our PR for the event. We also work closely with our creative and production teams in cities across the globe and bring them into the Australian fold in the months and weeks leading up to the event. We engage over 100 contractors to help us produce the event, and we have over 500 volunteers on the ground to help us wrangle our 25,000 guests. So after working through a number of staffing models over the years, we've found this is our best approach and positions us the best to have a depth of both staff and expertise when we need it most. So for other events in Australia, you might find this similar flexible model works really well for you. So that gives you a sense of how we have grown our event in Australia, and this is how we've taken the different challenges that we've faced and converted them into opportunities which have helped us ultimately build the event scale and credibility. So let's take a look at what this success looks like. So designer participation has grown by 50% across the last 3 years. Participation in the suites has almost doubled following its first year. International media interest in the event has grown with a 32% increase in attendance last year. We've had first-time visits from major international retailers like Saks Fifth Avenue and Farfetch, and 120% increase in international buyer attendance. Domestic buyer attendance also increased by over 148% over the last 2 years. And our total domestic media coverage of the event increased by 41% last year, and sponsorship is also on the up. We've increased by over 60% since that first year of resort in 2016. And Australian Fashion Week continues to lead the way globally to engage consumers with the Fashion Week trade platform. Now in its 6th year, Weekend Edition is still the only place in the world where consumers can preview the resort collections days after the industry. So the event attendance is increasing year on year, up 34% in 2017 and up 8% last year. Our millennial audience, importantly, is growing, with the core demos shifting from women 25 to 44 to 18 to 34 last year. And why this is important is it's projected that by 2025, millennials will actually account for 45% of the global luxury goods market. The best-selling Weekend Edition ticket category is our Platinum ticket, which is the most expensive ticket available, and this alone demonstrates their spending power. So let's look back on the challenges we've faced and then the universal lessons which we shared and can sort of give you guys a help into your own events. First, we learned to find the white space. So in our industry, that was the ownership of resort collections, which was scattered and rarely centralised around one particular week or city in the world. So establishing Sydney as the home of resort gave the event a really clear purpose and added weight, and incentivised those global buyers and media to pay attention to us. Our next lesson was elevating the experience is essential for growth. So this is one we learned through trial and error. After our venue upgrade in 2013, we finally saw how investing in the right venue was an investment in our future growth. Since relocating to Carriageworks, the quality of the experience for everyone in our industry, from designers and editors and producers and sponsors, has dramatically improved. It also afforded us the option to do these new things like Weekend Edition and the suites, offering new growth opportunities that continue to elevate our event across every metric. Our third lesson is to scale your teams to mirror the expertise you need. So working out a staffing model that best serves a seasonal business like ours can be challenging, but over the course of our time producing MBFWA, we've found the model that works for us. We do not maintain a robust team of full-time staff here in Australia, but with the event taking place just once a year, it just doesn't make sense. So rather, we bring in the right people at the right time and draw from both local experts and our global bench of staff to fluctuate with our needs. So this allows us to be really nimble and ensure we always have the best talent here working on the project. And finally, and perhaps most crucially for our business, we learned to get ahead of the cultural curve. So whether social trends were technological or consumer mindset related, we were able to react to the innovations like the iPhone and the explosion of social media and the millennial obsession with Instagram to embrace these trends as part of our business model. Whether from the way we work with designers to the way we execute the actual production of our shows, the way we engage partners or activate on our own brand channels, this forward-looking and risk-taking approach has allowed us to supersede other events in our category. So that brings me to the end of my session and the start of your coffee break. I don't know about you, but I certainly need a coffee after that. But I hope that you find that these lessons from our experience with Australian Fashion Week can be applied to any business in the events industry, regardless of your sector. So thank you for having me and enjoy the rest of your day here.
Thank you, Natalie. Ladies and gentlemen, Natalie Zanita.